Hello and welcome in. Mark here, aka the Markster. This is video number 92 in the FreeCAD series. Today we'll be talking more about the PDWrapper macro. I want to follow up on the previous video and go into a little more detail. So let me show you which version I'm using today. This is 0.20, revision number 27518. And I'm on Windows 10. So in the last video, if you haven't watched it, you might want to go ahead and watch it now before you watch this one. And actually the one before that also dealt with PDWrapper. So in the last video, I showed you how you can bring a part workbench primitive into a part design body. And one thing we didn't talk about in that video was dependencies. And we need to manage dependencies when dealing with the PDWrapper macro. So last time I went into part workbench, I made a tube primitive and brought it into a part design body with the PDWrapper macro. And that puts it into the body. This is the simple case where there are no dependencies. I wrote down on Notepad here. Hopefully this is big enough that you can all see it. Let me make it a little bigger here. So there are four possibilities. There can be no dependencies, which was the case in the last video. The tube was just a primitive object. It was not attached to anything. It had no dependencies. And when I say no dependencies, I mean nothing was dependent on it, and it was not dependent on anything else. So we have the four possibilities here. No dependencies, dependencies outside the body, dependencies inside the body, and kind of the worst case, dependencies both outside and inside. So in the case where you have no dependencies, you can do like I just did, select the object, run the macro, bring it into the body. Alternatively, let me delete the wrapper here. And that takes the tube back out of the body. You see the body is not expanded, and you can still see the tube in the tree. Another option is, can you deselect? Select the tube and make a shape binder. Do that in part design. You can make the blue shape binder or the green. Just select it in the tree view, not in the 3D view. Select it over here in the combo view and make the blue binder will work. So now you have the tube is still outside the body. We can hide it. The shape binder is in the body, but it's not part of the body. You cannot do operations on this shape binder. For example, you can't pocket the shape binder. It's there only as a reference. We can make a sketch on top, watch. We'll add a circle here. And if we try to pocket that, there's no solid to subtract from. cannot use this command as there is no solid to subtract from. It's not recognizing that the binder is a solid. It's not part of the solid feature chain that I talked about in the last video. So what we need to do is use the PDWrapper on the binder. Select the shape binder, run the macro, and we're going to choose additive here. Now it's sort of registered to part design that we've got a solid inside the body. Now we can select that sketch and do a pocket. So that was one option. We can bring the tube in directly. It took the binder out. Like we did in the last video. Or we can make a binder of it and bring the binder in. That works fine. Either one of those options work fine for number one. If we have dependencies outside the body, now not every dependency matters. For example, if you link to a spreadsheet, that doesn't matter. If you link to a named constraint in a sketch, that doesn't matter. Some property value doesn't matter. Watch, let me go into part again. This time I'll make a cylinder. Show the tube again. So we got a cylinder here and a tube. I'm just going to move the cylinder over so we can see both of them. And I'm going to select the tube, and I'm going to make its height property. I'll press the equals key on the keyboard here. Cylinder dot height. Put the magnifier on there. Cylinder dot height. And I'll press OK. So now the tube is linked to the cylinder. It's dependent on the cylinder. When we change the cylinder's height, the tube's height will change with it. If we look at our dependency graph, Tools menu, Dependency Graph, you'll see that the tube is linked to the cylinder. There's a little arrow pointing to it. And you see that there? I don't know if you can or not. That's okay. We don't have to worry about that kind of link. It's the other types of link that can cause problems. So we could bring this tube in directly using the PDWrapper as an additive type. And we'll look at our dependency graph again. You see there are no red arrows. You don't want red arrows. You want them all nice and black. Red arrows indicate a problem. That's what we're trying to avoid. Now, if you don't have dependency graph, you need to install graph viz. Let me write that on here. Graph viz. If you're on Windows, do a search for that, download and install it. If you are on Linux, do a web search for that, find out how to install it on your whichever you have. Like if it's Ubuntu, maybe it's, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's apt-get install graphviz, but I don't know what it is. You have to look it up. I'll try that. If it works, great. You might already have it installed. If you're on Macintosh, maybe it's in the App Store. But you have to have that installed for the dependency graph to work. Okay, so this has a dependency outside the body, but it's not one that matters. So let's give it one that matters. What we can do is attach the tube to this top face of the cylinder. Now this dependency matters. If we bring this tube in, like we did before, run the macro here. Now we're going to get red arrows, I hope. Yeah. Maybe not. Should be getting red arrows. Okay, I don't know why we're not getting red arrows here. If we move the cylinder, the tube is going to go with it. So we should be getting red arrows in the dependency graph. And that must be a bug that we're not. Maybe because of that height property being linked. Let's see. That might be hiding the red arrow. Bear with me here. Let's turn this off. Click this. Click clear. And now check. Now we're getting red arrows. Okay. We're getting the warnings down here on the bottom. Let me move this up a little higher. This is the report view. So we're getting these warnings about links out of scope. We want to avoid those. And we want to avoid the red arrows. That's a bug in the system, that the red arrow gets hidden by the other arrow. Okay, so the way we need to do this one then is we need to make that shape binder. To make the binder, import design. You can use the blue or the green. You select the whole object in the combo view. Make the binder. Select the binder and use a macro on it. Add its type. Let me clear these warnings. Now let's see if we're still seeing the red arrows. Now they're black arrows. That's what we want. It's like being in business. You want to be in the black, not in the red. So that's when you have dependencies outside the body. If you got dependencies outside the body, use the shape binder. If you have no dependencies, then it's optional. You can use the binder if you want to or not. Doesn't matter. You just get an extra object in the tree. So I prefer not to if I don't have to. Now we've got an extra object. But if you wanted to leave the tube out of the body, that would be a way to do it too. Like if you wanted to use this tube for some other operations outside the body. If it was going to in the future have dependencies outside the body, then you want to use the shape binder. So the third situation, dependencies inside the body. And this can happen. Let me delete this, and I'll delete the binder too. So this can happen if you use some part operation, for example. Let's go back here and pad this first. I'll pad that sketch just to have something in the body. Then I could attach this tube to this. It's not recommended to attach to that face. I don't want to teach you any bad habits. Let's attach to this plane instead. Let's make this sketch go in reverse. Make that pad go in reverse. It wasn't on the plane, was it? Let's put it on the plane. So I'm putting the sketch on the XY plane. See it there on the plane? And then we padded it. And I want it to go in reverse. Okay. Now it's below the plane. Because I want to put the tube on the plane, on top of the pad. Select here, select the plane. Okay. Let's hide the cylinder. Hide those origins. So now the cylinder, now the tube is attached to the origin, and that's a link unallowed. You see the red arrow? But that's okay because it's temporary. We're going to move the tube into the body with the PDWrapper. So you might have a link from outside the body into the body. And we can run the macro directly on the tube. We'll tell it to follow the pad. And now, black arrow. That's the tube linking to the plane because it's attached to the plane. So that's the situation where, number 3, you have a dependency inside the body. And that dependency can be either direction. It can be the tube is dependent upon something inside the body, or something inside the body is dependent on the tube. Shape binders are allowed to do this. They're like the teacher's pet. They get the hall pass whenever they want it. They can link inside and outside the body. So let's look at now number 4. Dependencies both inside and outside. So these are the trickiest ones to deal with. Okay, you don't want to use a shape binder. You don't want to use a shape binder when the object has links inside the body. Okay, when it's outside the body and it has a link inside the body, you don't want to use the shape binder there. Okay, I want to emphasize that. Because if we use a shape binder, it leaves the object outside the body. And now when we wrap the binder, we're going to get those red arrows, or we should. There you see, because the tube is still outside the body. So when to use the shape binder and when not to use the shape binder. There's a time when you can, if you want to. It's optional. There's a time when you need to, right here. And there's a time when you should not, right here. Okay. Binder, optional. Binder needed. No binders. Okay. Let's get rid of some of this stuff. I'm going to delete the tube. I think we're finished with it for this video. I want to go to Curves Workbench to show you the next example for number 4. So in Curves, what you need to install an add-on manager, Tools, Add-on Manager, and you want to look in the Workbenches section and find Curves. Right here, Curves Workbench. Fantastic. Fantastic workbench. And install that one. And then you'll have access to some of these tools in here. Let me clear that little warning from the add-on manager. So the one we're going to look at today, which we've looked at in the past, is this sketch on surface. And you know what? There was a user who had a question about doing a bowl shape. So let's do a bowl shape instead of a cylinder. Let me go back to Sketcher. Let's go back to part design. We'll make a sketch here on the XZ plane. And I just want to make a bowl here. Let's see how I'm going to do this. Start at the origin. Come over a ways. Press the M key to get an arc. Yeah, let's make it that direction. You see how carefully well planned this is. What are you doing? Let's make an arc here. Let's see if we can get this tangent constraint. Make this horizontal. Make another make these equal radius. Vertical. And supply a tangency here. Point to point tangency. We'll set these two vertical to one another. Nope, didn't like that, did it? That's going to be an ugly bowl. You can't be equal here. Okay, let's make this something 2 millimeters. I like to move my constraints kind of out of the way. Now let's see if these will go vertical. Okay, that's going to be good enough for this, hopefully, demonstration. And let's see, we're going to revolve this 360 degrees. So that's our bowl. Is it run a check geometry on here? I have a link to it, but you'll have to go to part workbench. No errors, so we're all good. Back to part design. Back to curves. Okay, let's select this surface here. We're going to use this sketch on surface tool. Let me get the magnifier on that. That's it right there. Looks like a half cylinder with the sketch. Select the surface here first, and then create the object. And that creates a sketch on surface object and a sketch. And this is not a part design object. So the goal here is to bring that object into part design with the PDWrapper. Let's look at our dependency graph. And we've got map sketch with the red arrow because it's linked to the revolution, which is fine because we knew this was going to happen. And we're going to fix it. But the sketch, the surface object is not. So map sketch has links into the body, but sketch on surface does not. But sketch on surface has links to the map sketch. So let's see now if we can do something with this. So when you double click on map sketch and we click the section here, view section, you'll see that there is some blue edges here created automatically for us, and this is to scale whatever we're going to put on the bowl. So let me go to draft workbench and we'll make a shape string. Let's set our view to the top mode. Top. I always like to have the view to the top when making a shape string. Reset this point here, and I'm just going to put PDWrapper in there. You'll have to select the font on your computer. Mine is already selected where I have this Arial font. Reset this point so it's on 0. Because as you move out, you see it sets that these boxes for you. Reset these to 0. Say OK. And now let's go back to, well, let's see, double click the sketch again. We see our shape string is way too big. Let's see what 3 will look like. Double click on here again. Where is our shape string at? Okay, there it is. I'm going to go to wireframe view mode. Let's see. Wireframe. Now we can see it. And we can move the position of the shape string up. Let's see. .25. That looks pretty good. I need to delete these constraints here. I can drag these out just a little bit. This sets the scaling for the sketch on surface object. That's what those blue lines are for. Now let's click on here. Let me hide the shape string. Some properties we need to set. So offset, let's try 3 there. Try 3 here. Let's see, where are you at? Fill face is true. Live TV, folks. Let me get out of wireframe mode. Let's see. Done something wrong. Oh, I forgot to do something. Extra objects. You see here? We need to select that shape string. And let it recompute. Now we're in business. Okay. Let's set this offset smaller. Thickness might need to be smaller too. That's wrapping nicely around the bowl there. It might need to be a 0 offset. Alright. And we'll go actually negative on the offset. -1. Now it's kind of embedded in there. And we'll make the thickness 2. So you see how it really bending nicely on this surface here. Now the surface is inside the body, and the sketch on surface is outside the body. I would like to kind of bring that up higher. I wonder if I move the shape string up. What will that do? Probably nothing. Chop off some of it. Okay. That did something. So 5.5. Apparently this is a really small bowl. I didn't constrain it. You would need to constrain your bowl to be proper size. But that's more like where I wanted it at. Of course it's in reverse. So that's no good. But there's an option on here. Reverse UV. So I think V is the one to reverse here. Let's see. No, it wasn't V. It must have been U. Let's set that one to false and U to true. See what that looks like. Gotta wait for it to recompute here. You might have to do both. There we go. Now we can read it. Your PDWrapper bowl. So if we extended this out a little bit more, this is totally not even the focus of this video, but okay, let's see what happens there. So give us a little more room between the end of the R and the start of the P. Yeah. Okay, so now let's get back on task here. Look at our dependency graph again. So we've got this red arrow, and we've got to get all three of these into the body is what we got to do. So first I'm gonna select a solid, and I'll use the PDWrapper to bring it in, and I'm gonna use subtractive like we were cutting into the bowl, and let's see if that works. There we go. So we kind of engrave that into the side, or you could have it embossed. Use an additive instead to make it embossed, make it stick out. Do it again. Macro, PDWrapper, additive type this time. And now it's embossed on the outside. It's sticking out way too far, but the bowl's way too small too. Okay. Now we need to look at our dependency graph again. So the shape string and map sketch both need to come into the body. And the way we can do that is select the body and look for this group property. group. Okay. And when you select here, you have this button come up with the little 3 little dots right here. Hope you can see that. When I hit the magnifier, it turns it off. So now we just need to select the 2 objects that we want to bring into the sketch, to the body. Map, sketch, and shape string. So now they're in the body too. Let me clear this warning and check our dependency graph. Now we've got the black arrows. And we've got our object. So this is going to wrap up this video. Just to recap here. If you got dependencies outside and inside, no binder here. Use group property to bring in extras. These warnings that you get and this red arrows that you get, sometimes they don't matter, but sometimes they do. So you want to avoid them whenever you can. You don't want to get any kind of warnings, and you don't want those red arrows. So if you use this in like an assembly, or if you move the body, it can cause problems. Or if you've got a reference outside the body and it causes what you put into the body to move, when it moves, then it can mess up your body. So that's the reason for those warnings. And just remember, if you don't have any dependencies, you can use a binder if you want to. If you have dependencies outside the body, then you need to use the binder. Select the object in the tree, make the binder, use the PDWrapper on the binder. Dependencies inside the body, then you don't use the binder. You use the PDWrapper to bring the object in. Okay, PDWrapper edits that group property is what it does in the script to get the objects into the body. So when you edit that body's group property, you're doing the same thing that the PDWrapper does. And when you have dependencies both outside and inside, that's when you need to bring everything into the body. I hope that's all clear as mud. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.